Morning all, got the hood up today in the rain, walking dogs. So, I want to talk now about the relationship between these kinds of words: addiction, attachment, compulsion. So, those three words referring to the same kind of thing. It's as if there's a different flavour, maybe a different strength to all of them. So, usually we understand addiction. Well, we understand it all too well in our society. Addiction is basically when people are in a bad place because of some kind of usage of alcohol or drugs or something which is destroying their life. That's the general stereotypical understanding of addiction. Attachment seems like it's a lighter, more subtle form of addiction. I know that many people in the field of addiction think that attachment, it's not as strong as addiction. It maybe refers to less harmful forms of behaviour. So like addiction purists, if you like, don't feel that you can be addicted to, say, technology or behaviour, certain behaviours or even people or stuff along those lines. Well, that's what I've had in my experience anyway. I beg to differ. But yeah, even the word just has a lesser of a connotation. Attachment to something or addiction to something. And then you've got compulsion, which is, well, it sounds strong, doesn't it? But it hasn't really got the same connotations again as addiction. But if you think about it, when you're compelled to do something, I mean, it can be compelled to do something positive. But if we're talking about negative or harmful behaviours, then if you're compelled, if there's compulsion, then that would indicate that the addiction is massive. And that's what addiction is really, when it's compulsive behaviour. So when you're compelled to do something. Now the reason why I'm talking about this today is because addiction is like, if I like to see all this in the form of a spectrum. So you've got, let's say, mild addiction is it's behaviours that you do that you don't really think about, or maybe you do. Maybe you find it difficult to stop certain behaviours, but because those behaviours aren't causing you necessarily like as much damage as like a really hard addiction, maybe they're not classed as addiction. I use the term addiction for it all because I don't relate the same way to addiction, having worked in that field. It doesn't have the same connotation. I can use addiction for, as I say, lesser behaviours. But but yeah, there's a spectrum in terms of how attached or how addicted we are to certain things. And the reason why it's a spectrum is it's because, well, a spectrum refers to the fact that it's all within the same category. So for me, mild attachment is in the same spectrum as heavy addiction or even compulsion. It's the same, there's a fundamental that sits underneath all of that. Fundamental drivers, fundamental reasons for why we can be engaged in more subtle forms of attachment and also heavier forms of addictive behaviour with harsher consequences. So let's give examples, because what spurred this morning, and this is what I'm getting at with the fundamentals which sit at the root of this, because what these videos are about and what I'm about really is finding the most primal of the most universal human drivers. What sits at the roots, what can we bring everything back down to, is the main principles which power everything and guide everything. with the aim of, that's where the answers are in terms of aiding things or helping things or fixing things. So I'm going to take this hood down, it's not so bad. So yeah, so what prompted it was, so this morning, so I come out on my walk. I like spending an hour. I like spending the first hour maybe being present in nature and not feeling the need to have to check my phone, take in information. That first hour for me is important. It's a time where I can connect with something a little bit deeper, and I look forward to it. For me, it's essential for my being, for a human to do that. At some point, you've got to fit that in where you can, really, in this modern lifestyle. Connecting, whether it's through nature or if you have the time and space for meditation or whatever. So this morning, I get out and a little bit distracted. I didn't end the night last night well before bed. I was a bit distracted and a bit troubled by a few things. And then this morning, my routine was different. I don't eat usually of a morning in the first couple of hours, but I wanted to eat. I got something to eat. I felt the need for that bit of comfort food, and I watched quite a lot of internet video yesterday and over the course of the evening, so I was distracted in that kind of stuff. And so this morning, when I got out onto the field, I found myself, so the thought was, chill, leave the phone, get present. And I didn't want to. I wanted to get the phone out. I wanted to put a video or something instructional or informational on. And it was funny because I noticed that I knew what was good for me. I knew what my routine was. I knew what made sense, which was to be present and take that first lovely hour in nature before other things happen. But I was compelled to distract myself with content on a phone, and so there was the mental tug of war, the psychological tug of war, the spiritual tug of war, if you want to call it that. And this is the nature of addiction. Now, as I say, addiction purists will argue with that. There's no harm coming from it as such, but again, it's a spectrum of harm, isn't it? I'm passing up the chance to get well, to be well in that hour. I'm passing up that opportunity, and I'm entering distraction, some kind of comfort. It's numbing through a content, and this is what phones and computers are these days. They're opportunity to be distracted from something. And obviously the reason why I wanted to do that was feeling a little bit troubled, feeling a bit disturbed. And this is at the roots for me of all addictive behaviour. And so it's the same dynamic. There's discomfort, there's troubles, a mindset, and there are then the pleasures or the distractions that we engage in when we feel like that. And it's more subtle, yeah, but as I say, it's a spectrum, but it's the same drivers, it's the same principles. And that was it, right there, right then. And this is daily stuff for me. I know it is for me. And I'm assuming it's like that for everyone. But there you go. It was, I was attached. I was compelled to act in a way I knew I didn't want to. because it served some other purpose, and it usually involves pain. So yeah, 10 minutes that, God, that went quick. I'm gonna get back into nature now, if I can, and I'll see you all again soon.